Happy anniversary, Laura.
Thank you. Happy anniversary.
2 years of Scissors and Scrubs.
I can't believe that.
I can't believe it's been 2 years either. Of course, I like to listen to all our old episodes over and over because they make me happy. And I was listening to the snowmobile one and the ice one, which I went on a snowmobile like last weekend.
I still have no helmet.
I had no helmet on. What am I, an idiot?
Don't do that.
Well, and I was in the woods.
Yeah.
But I was maybe doing 5 miles an hour because I was terrified. But I had my kids in helmets, if that makes any sense. So I'm listening to it and listening to all your little tidbits of what to do in the ice. I'm like, wow, I should write this down because this is actually really good information for people to know. I was like, well, stick my arms to the ice. Yeah, I should do that. I really should do that. So when I was at work the other day, one of the doctors was like, we had this patient come in. He was hypothermic. He had been walking the street. He'd been walking the streets at night. He was hypothermic. And they brought him in and they put him on ECMO. And she's like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I said, dead till your woman dead. She's like, well, he's asking for juice now. I was like, oh, you saved him. She's like, yeah, apparently you aren't dead till your woman dead. Any highlights from the year besides we've been locked down in COVID and never got our live show in that we wanted to do?
About the show highlights?
Yes. Well, your life, whatever you want to talk about.
I mean, Ireland was nice last year.
It was nice. I'm actually mourning it as we get closer to the day we left.
I'm like, we were planning it this year.
It really hurts. That was the last hurrah before lockdown for a year.
It was a good one, though.
It was a great one.
Highlights of the show? I like the one that's coming out in 2 weeks. It will have already been out before this episode. The Hartford.
Yes.
I liked that. I liked doing the
COVID updates.
Yeah, and I like doing the thing with the organ bank.
The organ bank one was a big
interview.
Hit. That was a big hit. And what made me nervous a little bit is a lot of the doctors listened to it, which I didn't expect.
Yeah.
One of the transplant surgeons like, good job, ladies. I'm like, what? You listen to that? Please don't listen to that. I say weird shit in these things. I can't have you looking at me like that at work. Yeah. I thought that was a pretty good one, too.
Yeah, I liked that. The Kevin Kiley interview.
Yeah.
It was good.
I think he went into somebody at work. He's like, I'm on the podcast. Have you guys met me? And they were like, what? I don't know who you are. I don't listen to that podcast. We have all these new kids at work and now they're all listening. So spread the word, guys. Spread the word. All right. We need all the colleges to hear about us so we can do some shows.
They tell me that though. And I'm like, oh.
I know.
One kid was like,
I'm trying to be.
I had my mother listen and I was like,
and she loved it.
She's so proud of that. This is who you're learning from. She's so excited for your future.
She listened to the penis episode and she must think butt stuff and she think it's great.
Yeah. She's so happy for you.
Yeah, those ladies are something. Hey, it's something. Well, we decided this really isn't our anniversary episode because by the time it comes out, it's a month past our anniversary, but we're recording it on our anniversary. So we're going to call it our second anniversary episode. And this week we're going to talk about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Yeah, I'm going to tell you it's disturbing. It's a disturbing episode.
Your stuff is real disturbing.
It's disturbing.
Mine's not very disturbing.
Mine's disturbing.
Yes.
And as I was writing it, I didn't think it would be as disturbing to write it as I'm writing it out. I'm like, I can't imagine this happening to me. So what are we alluding to? We're alluding to doctors and staff who have sexually assaulted patients or are abusing drugs and whatever while they're working. Which we see plenty of that, unfortunately. And then surgeons who are in rock and roll bands. Figured if it's sex, drug, and rock and roll, I had to cover
all three.
Frickin' rock and roll. All right, shall we kick it off? Let me take a drink. Hold on a second. I need a sip.
Yeah. And I think there should just be a trigger warning with the first part. Anyways.
It's disturbing.
Yeah.
It's disturbing. And I guess my other warning is these are few and far between.
Yes.
Don't go into surgery and think that this is happening to everybody because it's not. It's few and far between. I mean, yes, it happen. It does. But the staff in the ORs are usually pretty diligent about advocating for their patients and keeping them safe. So what I found also interesting about this, and when I get to the second story, it pissed me off when I was writing it. Because even when you listen to Dr. Death, staff doesn't like to report.
Yes.
Because nothing happens. And hospitals don't want anything on their blemish, so they push it aside, or they make them resign, or they move them somewhere else. And that kind of pissed me off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I went into Sage Journals with a James Dubois and a Heidi Walsh. Okay. And they wrote this entire paper on statistics, which, as you know, as soon as I started reading it, I started yawning. So I kind of skimmed it and took some highlights. Okay. So the FSMB, which is the Federal State Medical Board, they talk that sexual violations, as they are considering sexual violations as engaging in any contact with a patient that is sexual or may be reasonably interpreted as sexual. Okay. Mm-hmm. Sexual violations cause harm to patients. Mm-hmm. Patients who enter into quote-unquote consensual sexual relationships tend to be not mentally healthy. Mm-hmm. These encounters usually occur where there is a considerable disparity in power, status, and emotional vulnerability existing between the doctor and patient, rendering consent inapplicable. That's the word I'm trying to say. Inapplicable. So basically what they're saying is because the patient is usually in a position lower than the doctor, and they're looking at the doctor as somebody with experience and power, it makes consent invalid. Right. So sexual misconduct includes sexual intercourse. Did you know that? Yeah, it's a given, right? Yeah. Okay. Masturbating in presence of your patient. Hey, I just can't imagine being like, I'm just going to take this out. Okay. Genital contact and rape or sodomy.
Genital contact?
Mm-hmm. I guess you just throw your penis in their face. So one of my girlfriends had gone to a bachelorette party, and she's so prim and proper. She's so not like this person. She's sitting down, and she's the male stripper had this pink thong on. She's like, all I could see were like zits on his ass. She's like, and he's throwing his penis in my face. Like, it hit me in the cheek on his pink thong. So I guess that might be sexual misconduct. And I just, every time I think of that story, I die laugh.
That is why no one wants that.
Her wedding gift, I gave her a framed picture of her and the stripper, because somehow she had a picture of it and she gave it to me as a joke, so I get back to her for a wedding. Okay, all right, what did I write here? Patients who suffer from abuse can suffer from depression, anger, drug and alcohol abuse, trust issues, and PTSD. Yes. One study claims that fewer than 1 in 10 patients report sexual abuse with their physicians. Reasons for not reporting are shame, fear of not being believed, which is a huge one. Some are not aware of the abuse because they were under sedation. Some are compliant because they're trading sex for drugs, for prescriptions. They're confused as if it really occurred, which this kind of disturbed me. If you go to a GYN exam and they examine you with no gloves, that's rape. Yeah. I was like, ooh, didn't even think of that. And most hospitals choose to ask the physician to resign rather than report it to law enforcement, which I thought was a little disturbing. Okay, so February 2010, this woman decided to waive any kind of HIPAA and used her name in this article. I got it out of the Toronto Sun. Deborah Dreise. I don't know how to pronounce her name. Dreise. We're going with Dreise. Okay. Yep. She's a young mother of twins, and she went into North York General Hospital in Toronto, Canada, for a hysterectomy. Okay. Now, what I don't understand about this is I would think she would be completely anesthetized for a hysterectomy, but she recalls what happened. So I don't know if they give her spinal or an epidural. Okay.
Maybe she had like a vaginal hysterectomy. And
Maybe. Little did she know she would be the last victim of a Dr. George Dudnot and help bring him and his 10-year sexual abuse to an end.
Jesus.
Okay. Deborah claims that while in Dr. Dudnot's care, an anesthesiologist at North York General Hospital, that he fondled her breasts and he stuck his penis in her mouth.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. She couldn't believe what was happening and asked, like, what about the other people in the room? And his response is, don't worry, I know how to be discreet. Deborah, awake in her hospital room, tells the nurse, this guy stuck his penis in my mouth. And the nurse is like, are you sure it wasn't the drugs? Are you sure? So Deborah is disgusted. She goes and she makes a formal complaint against Dr. Dudnot. And this leads to Dr. Dudnot being charged with 21 counts of sexual assault among many patients ranging from the ages of 25 to 75.
Oh my God.
There were actually more counts, but only 21 went to court. Patient P a middle-aged woman and mother. She went in for a bilateral knee. Now, a lot of times knee placements will have spinals or epidurals. Mm-hmm. She recalls Dodnart rubbing her breasts under the drapes. And she's like, no, stop. Because they're also sedated through this. And he put his penis in the palm of her hand.
Oh.
And he proceeds to get off. Right in the palm of her hand. Yep.
I can't even.
Nobody noticed?
How do you not notice
jacking
this?
off in her hand? I don't know. Yep.
Okay, so people I don't think realize there's an anesthesia screen when you're in surgery. So you have drapes on, and the drapes go up to like IV poles.
And the patient's arms are usually out by their sides.
The head, the arms, their chest, everything the anesthesiologist needs to get to is up on his side of the drape. But you can see move like when they're trying to get to the IV, you can see the drape moving. You can see when they're trying to.
I guess he
fix
so
a breathing
gently
tube.
Placed his penis in the palm of her hand, and that was all it took for him. Yes. So other patients recall him doing the same thing, placing his penis in their hands to jack off, placing his penis in their mouths, placing his tongue in their mouths. I found that more repulsive than anything. His fucking disgusting mouth was in my mouth, and I can't stop him. And when patients confronted him about the abuse, he would be outraged, and he'd shame them and tell them that they were actually fondling him during surgery. Like, you grabbed me the moment you went under, so you better be careful. You stop fondling all the doctors, and they would be horrified. He told one victim, you reached for me the second you were under, and then he asked her to suck him off. And when her husband wasn't home, he said, I'll come over and give you a good fuck. This is a great guy, huh?
Wow.
Yeah, and you're going to see he's gross. He's just gross. So another victim he was abusing during surgery asked, like, do I have to do this? Like, is this part of my medical plan? And his response was, what happens in Vegas, honey, stays in Vegas. Like, how cheesy can you be, dude? This isn't like 1920. This is like recent.
Okay, but again, where's everybody else in the room? If the patient is speaking.
But you know what? All right, bilateral knee. You're focused on the knee. Saws are going. You're not listening. You can't hear. It's loud.
I know.
Just to be devil's advocate for a minute, like, I don't know. The
it's
second
a lot
story.
Of movement.
The
it's
second
a lot
story,
of
the nurses step in. Let's just say the second story, the nurses step in. Okay. Another victim, he actually calls her afterwards. He's like, do you remember inviting me over to come see your garden? And when you get into England and Canada, the garden's actually your fucking backyard. So patient Q, who went in for a hip replacement, was told, you are a sexy lady. You do blowjobs? He'd have been shit out of luck with me, dude. Be like, what are you going to give me? Followed by a nice breast squeeze. You do blowjobs? She said, like, it was painful how he squeezed her. So patients were reporting the abuse to loved ones, social workers, and hospital officials. Many were not believed or discarded because they're under, you're under drugs. Nobody believes them. Mm-hmm. Many victims were suffering nightmares, anxiety, and PTSD from the attacks. Finally, in 2013, he pleaded no contest, 3 counts of sexual assault, and was sentenced to 10 years. His medical license was finally revoked.
Oh, thank God.
And he later made an admission on a 4th count, and he was ordered to pay $497,860 for therapy, which he's contesting. He doesn't think he should have to pay.
Oh, of course not.
In 2019, he was denied parole, and he states, what I did to them was misinterpreted as a sexual assault because of the combinations of my touchy-feely approach. Yeah, touchy-feely. Here's my penis in your mouth.
Yeah.
And along with the drugs he was using, caused many women to think they were being sexually assaulted. And I wrote after that, he's an asshat.
He is an asshat.
And there you go.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I could see if one person said it. Not that I can see it. But I could see thinking, it's the medication. Mm-hmm. They give you all these drugs. You don't know what's happening. He could have reached to put the EKG sticker on. You're kind of out of it. They lift up your boob.
I actually think of that every time I'm touching a patient.
I know.
And I go out of my way not to touch them anywhere, but sometimes you accidentally brush or you have to move a piece.
Right.
And I always think, like, are they going to report me for sexual abuse? Are they going to think I'm doing something?
You do sometimes have to lift up that breast to put the EKG sticker on. Like, so you could almost be like, this is all like a one-off. Mm-hmm. They were on meds. They were sedated. He moved her breast. Like, penis in your mouth?
Yeah. Penis in my hand.
And 20 people are saying the same thing about one guy.
Yep.
One guy. Are they saying it about any other anesthesiologist there?
But nobody's believing them. Like, it's
but that's nuts.
I mean, we have There's one doctor we work with. He's an older man. I'd love to see him retire or leave. I find him a dirty, filthy, disgusting old man. Mm-hmm. And I had a very young patient, and I had to put a Foley in her. And I knew, I'm like, as soon as I go to put the Foley in her, he's going to come around the drapes to see what's going on. Sure than shit, he comes. I literally was laying across this woman's vagina till he left. I was like, can I help you? You need something? And he's like, no. I'm like, okay, we're good here then. I'm going to finish putting the Foley in as soon as you go up there. Because I was like, he just wants to look. He's a dirty old man. I hate him. That's it. He's a dirty old man. I hope he retires. I hope you retire, you piece of shit. All right. Anyway, now this one bothered me. Okay. So if you listen to our Mind Hunter episode, we interview Ann Burgess. Mm-hmm. And Ann Burgess, for those who don't know, if you ever watch Mind Hunter, the character of Wendy Carr is based on her. And she's a fascinating woman. And she loves to talk about what she does. Okay, she does. So when we were interviewing her, she said, you ever hear of this Dr. Miofsky? I'm like, no. And she's like, we'll send you the case logs. So this is coming from her paper and her case logs on this doctor, who is just a vile.
She helped study like psychopaths and serial killers, right. And she helped format all that.
She kind of came up with the forensic nursing at BC. Yeah. She's something. And I wish I had known about her 20 years ago, because I would have gone into that all day long. All right, excuse me. 1977. This name cracks me up. Nurse Sandra Dahl Neary, her middle name is Dahl, could not believe her eyes because she had doll eyes. Just couldn't even resist them. She had eyes like a doll. She was a nurse at Sutter Memorial Hospital in Sacramento, California. Dr. Calvin O'Kane, remember the last name, O'Kane. Okay. A respected surgeon was doing a laparotomy on a 50-year-old woman. The anesthesiologist, Dr. William Miofsky, stood less than 2 feet away, but in relative isolation, because when they are behind those drapes, I'm sure when you get into drugs, I mean, I have a friend who caught an anesthesiologist shooting himself up behind the drapes. Like, you can't really see always what they're doing. Only when they stand up, you're like, oh, hey, what's going on back there? But a lot of times they are in relative isolation back there. So he's behind the anesthesia screen, and Nurse Dahl Neri, she sees that Miofsky has his groin, like, in the woman's face. And he's kind of gently, like, moving back and forth. Nothing to see here. I'm just moving back and forth.
The nerve.
Right. Now, I'm going to tell you the way the story was written. I'm going to tell you what the woman actually wrote. So she and 2 other nurses notified Alan Waters O'Kane, chief OR nurse, to, like, take a look at this. So that she comes in, she looks, and she sees the patient's kind of waking up. She says to Miofsky, like, the anesthesia's wearing off. And he just gives her more anesthetic. Dr. O'Kane, so the nurses go to Dr. O'Kane, and they're like, this is what we just saw. He's like, you didn't see much. You saw nothing. It's 2 more years before Miofsky's bagged and caught and stopped. Okay. So Ann Burgess, she describes the same incident. It's a little different. In her papers, it states that Neri actually saw him with his penis in the patient's mouth. And she calls, like, it would be like me being like, Laura, come over here. Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Is his penis in her mouth? And she's like, his penis is in her mouth. Like, let's go get the charge nurse. Charge nurse comes in. She's like, penis is in the mouth. They report it to the doctor, and there's a stain on the sheets. And the nurse is like, there's a stain on the sheets. The doctor's like, that's nothing. Nope. We're not doing anything about this. You know, it's a trusted colleague. It's this and that. They do nothing. No one looks at, no swabs are taken on the stains on the sheets. Nothing is done. Nurses are told to do not discuss this any further. The chief of anesthesia does report to Miofsky, like, these are what the nurses claim they saw. And he's like, I never did that. I don't know what you're talking about. And that's the end of the case. So the allegations, they're relayed, the allegations go all the way up. Nothing is done. It goes to the hospital administrator. It goes to the president of the hospital, the board of trustees. Nothing is done. The OR nurses are really pissed now because they're like, this is disgusting. He's doing this. Nothing is done. So the OR nurses take it upon themselves to start their own investigation. And they start collecting data. 2 years after the initial complaint, he is with a 12-year-old patient. And the nurses see him pulling the same fucking stunt. So this time, the nurses get the suction tubing. So when a patient's waking up from surgery, they use suction tubing, specifically at anesthesia to clean out the airways and stuff. They swab the suction tubing, semen in the suction tubing. They take it to the administrator. Again, no official response. So they go to the state medical board. Now, it's important to remember the OR nurses have initiated the investigation. The OR nurses initiated the sample taking. And the OR nurses took it upon themselves to go to the state medical board. Okay? So the County Medical Society executive director and the president, they meet with the nurses who reported it and an attorney for the medical society. So we still have not gone to the police yet about all this information.
I know, that's what I was thinking of.
They tell Majovsky of their actions and they ask him to seek counseling. By now, he had resigned and he had already made his appointment with his psychiatric doctor. After a month, the medical board brings the case to the DA. So it takes 2 years and months after this specimen for the medical board to go to the DA, at which time now Majovsky's tried to commit suicide. Unfortunately, he didn't succeed. When the public hears about what is going on in the hospital, they lose their shit. And everybody, when it hits the fan, everybody's dragged in the dragnet. So the State Nurses Association tells the nurses not to speak against the gag order. So the hospital's like, you can't say anything. And the Nurses Association like, you better start speaking out and let them know you did something. In court, what happened to the victims starts to come out. One woman, she doesn't remember much till she woke up and she remembered seeing a wet spot on his pants. And she thought like, oh, he must have spilled something or he wet himself. She didn't realize she was a victim until the hospital contacted her because nurses had seen his penis in her mouth. Some victims recalled nothing. Others remember strange tastes in their mouth. Tastes like bleach. Another was not unconscious, and she remembers the full oral copulation. I don't know why she wasn't unconscious, but she remembers him putting his penis in the mouth and going to town. She told her husband in the recovery room, but nobody believes her. Majovsky pleads no contest to 3 felony counts involving 3 patients. As a result of the plea bargain, the other 4 other remaining involving 3 other patient charges are dropped. He is committed, and this kills me too, he doesn't go to prison, he goes to a state mental hospital. Now, because he's considered a mental disability, he can claim Social Security, which he does, so he can pay his child support. His license is revoked. In 1991, before 1991, he was released with outpatient care. In 1991, he's fully released from outpatient, any kind of patient mentally ill issue. In 1996, he marries a fellow AA member, and he starts working as a health inspector in California.
Ugh.
Yep. The hospital's accreditation was revoked by JACO, later reinstated.
Yeah, but I mean, good.
Hospital executive director was suspended with pay, pending investigation. He was later fired.
Good.
The State Medical Quality Assurance Board and the Board of RNs wants to suspend the license of the 3 nurses who originally reported. And there's 2 doctors. They want to go for gross negligence and unprofessional conduct, which they should, because the doctors are the ones who really squashed it in failing to report the offenses. On appeal, 2 of the nurses keep their licenses, and one nurse, which is Nurse O'Kane, who I'm assuming is married to Dr. O'Kane, they revoke her license for lack of doing anything. It just kills me the fucking nurses got hit.
Yeah.
But later they reviewed it again, said that was unfair. She gets 5 years probation. None of the doctors are found guilty. Shocker.
The nurses are who said they're doing this.
The nurses who took the fucking specimen and brought it to the medical board are brought up to have their licenses revoked.
But
why does nobody report anything? That is why nobody reports anything. So the Board of Trustees, because of this, revamps the board so that it's not a majority of doctors making it up. Now it's a mix. In all, 158 civil suits were filed in 1983, and they were consolidated and settled for several $1 million.
Wow.
It does not give you a disclosed amount.
Wow.
I was so disturbed by that story. A 12-year-old girl, like, my daughter goes in for surgery and this piece of shit sticks his dick in her mouth. I would cut it off. I know how to hide a body, and I would make sure they never found him. I could not believe, and I was livid the nurses take the hit.
Yeah.
The nurses always take the hit. I tell all the new people, cover your ass. Yeah. They're not your friends.
No,
because they'll be driving the bus right over you if shit comes, we just had an incident where a surgeon who we thought was very nice completely threw the entire evening shift under the bus for something his day nurses did. And I had to work with him the other night. I didn't have to work with him. I was with my little fledglings, and he walked in, and I looked at him, and my entire demeanor changed. I was like, I have to leave this room, or there's going to be a fight. I'm going to attack him. Yeah. I am so angry with him. Yeah. I may never be able to work with him again, or I might accidentally stab him with an 11 blade. Oh, but you didn't hear that on this.
Didn't hear
it. So that's the sex part of Sex, Drug, and Rock Roll. Tell us what you got, Sparkles.
That's just
disturbing.
And I do feel for the nurses at the same time. I think if I saw that, I would be standing at the drapes the whole time.
Yes.
I would be standing where the drapes go up so I could watch him the whole time.
I'd have one of those COVID plastic shields between him and the patient's face.
Yeah. Do you know what I'd literally be standing up there with you the whole time.
You do have to figure, though, this is 1979, 1980.
It's
different. That's when nurses were still standing when doctors walked in the room.
Right.
Not that doctors don't do weird shit today, but I think it's less likely because you're going to be like, are you out of your fucking mind?
Right.
Put that dick back in your pants. And I'm reporting.
And you're done. I'm getting somebody else in.
And you're fired.
Yeah.
All right. Take it away.
Well, I did addiction.
Oh. Yeah. Jane's addiction.
Yes. I got this information from an article on drugrehab.com by Matt Gonzalez from last year. The American Nurses Association says that 1 in 10 nurses abuse drugs or alcohol as we drink Bloody Marys.
Yes, but we're not doing it at the hospital.
No.
It's a big difference.
Yeah. Nurses are often thought of as being like calm and professional. People turn to you in time of need.
Have they met any nurses?
I know. But they have struggles, just like anyone else.
Most nurses have some sort of a Munchausen syndrome. Most nurses need to be needed, so they want to be a savior. Yeah. They always need to help. It's like they all have fucking psych issues, and most of them are married to psychopaths.
So they have problems.
Yeah. Big problems.
Nurses who have a substance abuse problem have impaired judgment and slower reaction times, which does not allow for good patient care.
No.
Obviously.
No, not if you're sharing their meds with them either.
They can harm patients themselves and the profession as a whole. They put a bad name.
Yeah.
They give us a bad name.
We do get a bad name.
But addiction is a disease. And a lot of the nurses think they're in control of their addiction until it's out of control.
Until they've depleted the entire morphine supply of the floor.
Why is addiction so high in nursing?
Because it's easy?
Well, genetics, depression, PTSD can all lead to addiction for anyone. Nurses, obviously anybody can have the genetics, but PTSD from seeing things at work and all that stuff, depression, anxiety from, being short-staffed and there's not enough people and I'm working extra overtime and it's a stressful job. And then nurses have these other reasons on top of that. They have one is fatigue. They work long rotating shifts. They have overtime all the time because of short staffing issues. Yep. They have physically, mentally, and emotionally challenging shifts. Not one part of it is not challenging.
Right.
A 2015 survey found nurses who work 12-hour shifts are more likely to burn out as opposed to nurses who work 8-hour shifts.
Shit.
Yeah, I know. I was like, well, I'm not going back to 8 hours.
Shit.
I'll just burn out.
I like to get all my hours done quick.
I know. Many nurses self-medicate to sleep. I don't know. I
don't know who would be doing that.
Or relieve headaches and backaches.
Yeah, that's it. I have a headache when I go to bed. That's why I need Tylenol PM.
Which can lead to drug misuse and abuse. Number 2, the second thing that nurses have on top of everybody else is stress, which other people have stress. Mm-hmm. The demands of providing physical and emotional support to patients and families is a lot. Nurses feel despair, anxiety, guilt, all these things all during one shift.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And you take it home. A study in Nursing Times found 63% of participating nurses experience physical or mental side effects of job-related stress. Stress can cause insomnia, nervousness, and depression, which can lead to substance abuse. Mm-hmm. Nurses go from stressful situation to stressful situation with no time to decompress.
Absolutely.
You go from one thing to the other, and there's no time to sit and think, shit, that was bad. Or,
because you got another one coming in.
Let me work that out. PTSD can also occur after experiencing a traumatic event, which is common in nursing, obviously. Mm-hmm. A study in depression and anxiety in 2009 showed 22% of participating nurses showed signs of PTSD, and 18% met diagnostic criteria for it. It also showed nurses with PTSD are at an increased risk for substance abuse.
We had a summer a couple of years ago, and it kicked off with that kid we always talk about. Yeah. And I, by the end of the summer, was angry. I was yelling at everybody to the point that my husband was finally like, what is wrong with you? When I finally sat down, I'm like, I think I have PTSD from this summer. It was bad. It was bad. Mm. And it wasn't until 4 months later that I'm like, wow, I think we saw too much. We had young people shooting in the head. And I just remember like they're shaving her hair and you could smell the shampoo that she had won. And her nails were done. And I'm like, she went out for a nice night out and she ended up with 4 bullets in her head. Right. You know, it's like, that was just a bad year. Yeah. And it took its toll on me.
Yeah. Sometimes it's too much.
It's too much. It's too much at one time.
Yep. The third thing is drug accessibility.
Well,
it's easy.
What?
Prescription pain meds are readily available and they induce cravings. Like the drugs we have at the hospital, all of them are the addictive, like you crave them. Once you have it once, you have to have it again and again and again.
The only drug I ever abused at that place was Bicitra.
Oh my God. I drank Bicitra
like I was pregnant. Every day I'd come down and be like, get me a Bicitra and shoot it down.
Oh, I had so much Bicitra.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Sorry guys, but that's what I abused.
Yeah.
GERD drugs.
I know.
I'm a real hot hitter.
Yeah, we really went for the good stuff. In the 1970s, fentanyl becomes available.
Uh-oh.
This is the downfall for everybody. Yeah. Nurses would draw some up, replace it with saline because it's clear. Mm-hmm. And this led to overdoses and addictions. Nurses were disciplined by their state boards and often fired instead of given help. State legislatures approved treatment for healthcare workers in the 1980s.
Wow. So that's late.
Yeah. So fentanyl comes out in the 70s. I'm sure they were abusing it. We had cocaine in the hospital. We had everything in the hospital. I'm sure they're abusing.
You could literally just pick cocaine up and you'd pour it out for like the nasal cases and stuff, and you could be like, okay.
Anybody could.
It's cocaine.
It was
right
just
there
on the cots. It wasn't even locked. But this fentanyl really pushed. I mean, people used to do Demerol. Do you remember the Demerol syringes? Mm-hmm. Morphine, but fentanyl really
anything
picked
they
it up
get
a
their
notch.
hands on.
And they just would fire you. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're high. They have a problem. It's an addiction. You need to get them help.
Right.
Anyways, finally that was given in the 1980s, and not every hospital. Some people still just fight them. So there's like a male versus female demographic stats for drug use. Women make up 97% of nurses, but men use drugs at higher rates.
Percent.
Oh, I know.
Wow.
Yeah, but men use drugs at higher rates than women.
I believe it.
Female nurses are more likely to abuse prescription drugs than their male counterparts.
What do the men go for?
The street drugs, apparently.
Okay.
Women,
they get them off the street.
Yeah. Women abuse later in life, although with fewer substances than men. So women might...
So I have time.
Take fentanyl.
I have time to start.
Yeah, but men might try anything available.
Right.
Women appear more physically affected by substance abuse. Well, we're more delicate.
Yes, well, especially when you're as thin as we all are.
Yes. 15% of nurses smoke, which is the highest rate among healthcare professionals.
I don't smoke.
No. Drugs of choice.
Lay it on me.
Painkillers like hydrocodone and fentanyl.
Yeah, they're easy to come by.
And alcohol.
I'm not drinking anything. I'm just cracking my water.
7% of nurses use prescription drugs for non-medical purposes. And that is a higher rate than the national average. So
that's pretty high.
We abuse it more.
Yeah.
Nurse anesthetists use these drugs at the highest rate.
Yeah.
One study of 2,700 nurse anesthetists showed 9% abused opioids in 2006.
So if you don't know what a nurse anesthetist is, they're basically a nurse that does anesthesia. Mm-hmm. They're an anesthesiologist without the MD.
Right.
And they'll be overseen by, so one room you could have 3 rooms with nurse anesthetists and one MD watching over all of them. Mm-hmm. So they're doing your anesthesia. Anesthesia has a huge rate of drug abuse because that's all they're dealing with is drugs.
4% of these used midazolam, which is a sedative, we give it to you before you go in for surgery. Like if you're a little anxious, we'll give them a little Medaz.
It's like you had a couple of drinks.
Here's a glass of wine.
Yeah.
No, that's what they
Feels
literally
great.
say. Here's a glass of wine. You'll relax.
And then all the dots in the ceiling start to spin.
Yeah, and they're literally like, I don't feel it.
This is great. I'm not nervous anymore. Yeah, shocker.
I don't know that that's working. You're like,
The
oh, it's
moment
working.
I get it, I can't stop talking. When I went in for one of my procedures, the doctor's like, we put you to sleep just to shut you up. I'm like, that's what happens when you give me that shit.
Well, I have a couple drinks.
Can't stop talking.
Yep. And then less than 1% used barbiturates. Nurses show higher rates of alcoholism than in other lines of work.
I believe it.
80% of nurses that abuse alcohol have a family member that is an alcoholic, which is
Usual.
normal. Other drugs used are cocaine, marijuana, heroin, amphetamines, sedatives, tranquilizers, and inhalants.
That's quite an array.
Mm-hmm.
Inhalants? Like glue?
No, they do like the keyboard cleaner and stuff like that. I mean, I guess you can inhale anything.
Keyboard cleaner.
That's how we know somebody that died like that.
I've never heard of it.
Mm-hmm. It's off. You're like, never. Don't huff anything. Don't
huffing. You don't want any of those chemicals. It literally rots your brain.
Yeah, do not.
It rots your brain.
And kids will do it. Like teenagers will take the computer keyboard cleaner and huff it.
I've never heard of this.
They'll literally do it one time, and their parents find them dead on their bed.
Are you kidding me?
I don't know if it
so maybe we should stop making the keyboard cleaner and just get some bleach.
Right.
Nobody wants to huff
bleach. I don't know if it's like an embolism. I don't know what it is, but they'll literally die from it. It's awful.
All right, let's just use bleach.
Yeah,
that kills everything.
Nurses use these illicit drugs at a lower rate than the general public, though. So these drugs that I just mentioned, they do use at a lower rate. They use the in-hospital drugs at a higher rate. And you can see, I mean, not that you can see it, but marijuana to calm you down after a bad shift. You had a hard time.
Yeah.
Heroin.
I mean, who doesn't like a good Mary Jane?
Right. You're going to use heroin and tranquilizers and stuff after you're using fentanyl in the hospital. If you can't keep stealing it, you go into the street drugs, which you get in heroin and that's
which heroin has fentanyl in it now anyway.
Yeah. Cocaine, amphetamines.
Cocaine.
You're working all these shifts. You're exhausted.
It's going to keep you going.
I got to stay up. I got to do another one. I got to work OT. They need me to come in. It gets out of hand. So some signs and symptoms of nurses being addicted are some nurses hide their addiction very well. Some physical signs, though, are fatigue, tremors, if you smell a lot of mouthwash and mints on someone's breath, dilated pupils, runny nose, nausea and vomiting, rapid weight gain or loss, frequent bathroom trips, and an untidy appearance. Behavioral signs: frequent anger, inappropriate laughter, hyperactivity, lack of concentration, insomnia, frequent lying. I can have a lot of those. Not the frequent lying, but a lot of the other stuff is...
I'll tell you, I mean, we had one nurse we used to work with, and I didn't realize, because I'm really naive. I don't look at people and think, Every time she came, we worked nights, she'd immediately go to bed.
Yeah.
Immediately go to bed. Couldn't find her. She wouldn't answer a call sometimes. Turned out she was a raging alcoholic. Yeah. And I relieved her on her last shift because she then proceeded to fall asleep on a stretcher and was found.
Yeah.
Shit-faced. But it's sad because that was a big problem. And we're in one OR in one hospital, and we've had a lot of nurses with abuse problems. So I can only imagine how rampant it is.
Nurses are afraid of admitting to a problem or self-reporting because of disciplinary actions. Other nurses tend not to report a coworker because of loyalty. So you work with this person day in and day out. They have your back, blah, blah, blah. I don't want to ruin their career. I don't want to get them fired.
Well, that's what I went in to relieve this particular nurse I'm talking about. And there was another nurse, a very well-respected 40-year nurse in the room with her. And when I went in to relieve this woman, she's huddled in the corner. And I thought she was legit sick. I'm like, you all right? I don't feel very good. And I just got a look from literally everybody in the room. And I'm so I didn't pick up what was going on. Now, the case is underway. No counts had been done. Couldn't remember her password to get in the computer. All she could do was sit in the corner. This other nurse was in there to take care of her. She knew what was wrong because I confronted her afterwards. I'm like, did you know this was going on? She's like, yeah, I did. But, what was I going to do? I didn't know what to say. I'm like, you cannot let somebody in that condition take care of a patient. No. It was her responsibility to report that. But I get it. If it was you, I don't know if I'd say something. I think I'd be like, oh, get your shit together. Or, go home. Go sober up. Go get some Bicitrin. Get the fuck out of here. But I get it. But I was just shocked that she knew this whole time and let her do it.
Right. I get what they're saying. Like, these people, you work with them. They're your friends. Do terrible they're things your friends. With them. Like, you're bonded. At the same time, you're there to take care of patients. Yes. This is can't let a patient liability. Because of, yes. And that person needs help.
Yes. Big time.
The person who's coming to work impaired needs help. Yes. You cannot be coming to work impaired. There's something wrong. There's something going.
It isn't until after they're removed that you start hearing, oh yeah, like I drove into work with her and she was so drunk one night, I had to drive. Why did you drive her into work?
Right.
Why did you drive her into work?
Right.
You should have told her, go the fuck home.
Right.
Go out
You're not coming.
You're
today.
a mess.
Right.
I mean, one nurse we worked with held it together so well. I had no idea till the woman had already gone through treatment.
Yeah.
That she had been coming to work. Right. I had no clue. No. I had no clue.
And they do. I mean, they can hide it.
They can pull it together very well. Yes.
Till they cannot hide it anymore. So, anyways, it goes unreported, which causes patients' well-being to be compromised. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to. I know it feels like you're betraying somebody.
You have to.
It's for their own good.
Because they could kill somebody.
They could kill somebody.
And now they're in prison.
Now they're in prison. Never mind, lost their job.
Yep.
They're going to harm a patient, which you take a vow to do no harm. Mm-hmm. That includes knowing something is happening. You have to report it. I am not a big report person. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big, I'm writing that up person. It actually drives me nuts, the stuff people write up.
I hate the safety reports. I hate them. I think they're stupid.
There's a time and a place.
Right.
And patient safety, and this nurse's safety, is the time and the place. Most state boards now offer assistance programs that help nurses get treatment and keep their license after successful treatment.
Yes.
So if you report a nurse or you self-report on yourself, you're not going to have like disciplinary actions. They're going to get you into a program. If you can successfully complete it, you get to go back to work, nothing on your license.
But if you have another strike, then you're fired. So if they've given you treatment and you go back to work and you continue to abuse, then they have the right to fire you.
But if you can successfully treat it,
right,
you can keep your license. So,
so don't
nip
fret.
it in the bud. Do it before it's a problem.
And we've
say, I need this help.
We had nurses and doctors both go through treatment, come back, and have had successful careers afterwards.
Many hospitals also offer employee assistance programs. I know where we work does and has a very strong employee assistance program. It is all
staff.
It's all people that work at the hospital. It's all only for staff and their families. It's psychiatrists. It's social workers. It's lawyers. It's counseling. It's therapy for drugs. But it's also all like HIPAA protected. No one knows your name. The people at work don't know you're going to it.
Right.
Your bosses don't know you're part of the employee assistance program. So it's not like no one's going to know you're in it.
And I think employee assistance, you also know, is not just for abuse of drugs and alcohol. It's you have a spouse who's abusing you. We've had people use it for that.
Right.
You are having any kind of crisis going on in your home.
You can go to your house. You can go to them for that.
Anything. You can go to them for anything. So don't think it's just like, I need to have a major problem. It could be anything that you're finding it hard to difficult.
Even if you just have like some anxiety from not even from work, from home life.
Right. You can go to them.
They'll hook you up with a counselor, and it's all
HIPAA
anonymous.
Right.
So they can get you, the employee assistance programs nurses can turn to them and get help instead of being fired. And instead of, I'm going to leave because they probably are on to me now. Like we get a lot of travel nurses, I think, that have some substance abuse problems. They're only there for 3 months. Oh, I've noticed a few.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even think of that.
But I've reported, I've said they can't go, you have to come out,
Makes sense, because then
one was a guy, and I was like, he's drinking, and they're like, no, he's not. I'm like, yes, he is. No, he's not. No, he's not. I'm like, he absolutely is. Nope. He was.
How'd you find out? How did they?
Someone else noticed, or I forget what he did, but I was like, I'm telling you now, he's drinking. No, he's not drinking. I'm like,
how did you know?
I could smell it. And everyone's like, I can't smell it. And I'm like, I can smell it. It's coming out of him. Not like off his breath, but he just had that smell. No, but you can smell it.
I had a nurse come up behind me, and she said something. And I was like, holy shit. She's loaded.
Yeah.
And I reported it, and they knew because other people reported. But then my mind starts playing tricks on me. Was it Calstat? Was I smelling Calstat on her? Was it this?
But then you get nervous because you don't want to say that
ruin
against
somebody's
anybody.
life.
Right.
You know, but I was like, Jesus, it took my breath away.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it wasn't even his breath. It was
his
pores.
pores.
The smell of...
Yeah.
Yes. Anyways, they also bounce around from job to job to job. Like they'll travel, they'll do travel assignments. You're only there 3 months. So by the time people catch on, you're out of there. And you can keep it together for a little while before you have to leave. Anyways, call employee assistance, get help, say to them, I need help, I have a problem.
Right.
You can keep your job, you can get assistance, you can keep your license. The ANA offers the Impaired Nurse Resource Center, which is an online center that helps nurses find alternatives to discipline and pair assistant programs. Go to your state legislature website and find your state substance abuse program for nurses. We have SARP. In Massachusetts, it's called SARP.
This makes me laugh.
Substance
SARP.
abuse.
They could come up with a better
Something
name.
SARP program. I don't remember what it is, but it helps you keep your thing. If after 5 years you're clean and stuff, your license is clear. Like it's
not the end of the world if you go get
help.
help.
To help
right. It's only if you keep continuing.
If you keep doing it, you're going to have a bad outcome, and then you're not going to recover from it.
And you could kill somebody and end up in jail.
So get help before you harm a patient or yourself. So, I have a couple stories.
I love stories. Tell me a story, Laura. Please tell me a story.
I'm going to go for this one first because it's a little less. So this is from healthline.com. So this woman, we'll call her Samantha, had been a nurse for years. And she had never used drugs. She came home one night and she had a leftover IV pain medication in her scrub pocket. And she's like, oh shit, what am I going to do with this?
Clearly this is before they were counting and wasting.
Right.
Yeah.
She's like, what am I going to do with this? Because now, like, if you bring it back, it's kind of weird. Like,
yeah, well, I do what I do is throw it in the trash.
She put it in her medicine cabinet.
Why would you do that?
I don't know. So then it was there for a while, and she's looking at it. She's like, maybe I'll just try it.
Yeah, that's not.
One day she tries it. I think it was there for a week, and she decided she was gonna.
I think she was always gonna try it, or she would have gotten rid of it.
Probably. Mostly out of curiosity, like, what does this feel like? She says as the medication hit her bloodstream, she literally fell to her knees and felt like all the pain in her life was draining out of her. And that was it, and she was hooked.
I've never had anything make me feel like that.
No. So she now starts abusing drugs. Hospitals have like all these systems in place for controlled substances. You have to put your fingerprint in. It comes up under your name. You have to waste. You have to have 2 nurses waste on the floor for opioids. You have to, you have to witness. So Can I get a witness? Yeah. So she was saying like, she would give the patient smaller doses and take the leftovers.
That's what happens. The patients suffer.
Right. A lot of nurses do, and your patient is suffering. Your patient just had surgery.
They need the pain meds.
0.5 milligram morphine because you're going to have the other half. Like, that's awful. But you're an addict and you're not thinking right. So she...
Well, then you make the patient look like a drug seeker when they're like, this isn't working.
Right, I need more.
Because it's been documented you were given a milligram. You're like, but you only got a half.
Right.
And you're like, I'm in agony. So now they look like drug seekers. Right. It's a real bad
it's
circle.
Terrible.
Yeah.
So she abused drugs on the job for years at 2 different hospitals in 2 different states. And then
that's the thing too. You got to go state to state because they can't fit. Your nursing license is state to state.
So finally, she was doing a medication waste with another nurse. Because when you waste like anesthesia has this do this all the time at the end of the case. Can you waste this with me?
And I watch them.
Oh, I do too.
I'm like, you better put that shit in that box.
Show you the medicine, how much they used, how much is left, and they have to show you the actual syringe of how much is left, and they have to drain it into a certain. There's like a container, drug container to squirt this stuff out into. That can't be like tampered and opened. And they have to squirt it out in front of you. Like I
sit there and watch till they squirt it out.
I'm not getting.
I ain't trusting your shit.
So this nurse, but this happens because when you're on the floor,
it's your friend.
And nurse.
It's you. It's like,
me.
I
like,
trust
Nicole,
Laura.
Can you sign that I did this?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, and you would.
Yep, 100%.
And in your rush.
Don't fuck me, Laura.
I know. And you're rushed because you're understaffed.
Yeah.
You are always understaffed. You are never at full staff anywhere in the world. So you're rushing. Mm-hmm. So I know you have 8 patients. Can you just I'm just going to get rid of this. I'm going to waste this morphine. Can you sign this? Yep. And they run by and sign it for you. They get away with it like murder. So this woman was doing a medication waste with Samantha. And she didn't like how the other nurse didn't like how the medication waste went. So whatever she did, I said like, oh, this is all queued up. Can you just put your ID in? She didn't feel comfortable. She told her nurse manager. They started an audit.
Never
and they found she was taken out. You know, she had way more waste.
That's a pretty smart
than anybody.
nurse. I'm not going to lie. That picked up on that.
Yeah. And maybe she suspected her for other things, but, you know, they find that you have, like, Laura has 40 withdrawals of fentanyl in 30 wastes, and you have 130 withdrawals. You know, like, the numbers are way off. Yeah. This girl, Sam, resigned before the investigation was completed. But the hospital alerted the board of nursing.
Well, because that's a big red flag if you resign.
Yeah.
Because if you're accusing me and I didn't do it, I'm going to fight you to the death.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not resigning and being like walking away quietly.
Yeah. So I guess the board gave her options to keep her license, but there was like a bunch of stipulations. Probably had to go through a treatment program and stuff. And she said she gave up her license. She was struggling through severe depression. She didn't want to fight a very long...
It sounds like she has some back issues going on.
Right. Career. She didn't want to fight like in the legal system forever and try to get her license back, blah, blah, blah. She now works in a different field, is successful, has a family, like does not abuse drugs. It was, whatever situation.
Nursing did her in.
Yeah. It was whatever situation she was going through. But she also says she was never once subjected to random drug tests.
We don't get drug tests.
Not even after she was suspected of abusing. They didn't give her drug tests.
We never get drug tests.
People say that all the time to me, like, well, yeah, because you get drug tests. And I'm like, I've never been drug tested. And they're like, what do you mean? You work with all those drugs.
Yeah, my husband gets random drug tested.
Mine
he has no access to drugs.
Mine does too.
Well, he's a driver. I get it.
Okay, but
he's driving people, but...
I'm like, I've never been. They don't test us. And they're like, what do you mean? Nope. They don't test nurses.
Which, I mean... They should.
I think traveling...
I did have to... Oh my God, my traveling story, right? Such an idiot. Listen, if you can trust anybody, you can trust me, because I lie terrible. I am guilty as sin. I can't hold it. Like, I can't handle the pressure, man. I can't handle the pressure, right? So my friend and I are traveling. We're going out to California. They're doing a random drug test. And we had smoked some pot. Right? So I got there. And it was like 3 days before
I
getting tested. And I was like... And I'm into and I know I'm going to test positive. I know it's coming up. And I'm like, this is my fucking job. We've driven out to California. So when I tell you, the woman didn't even have to put the light on me. I spilled the beans. I'm like, oh my God, we drank. Like, Tara's like, what the fuck did you do in there? She's like, what'd you tell you? A light story? You could have just said nothing. It would have been fine. I'm like, no, because if she bagged me, I would have been mad. So yeah, the woman's like, it's fine. It's fine. Everybody smokes pot. Don't worry about it. It's fine. I just dropped my books.
All right, so I have another story. This is from the Denver Post. I remember this happening.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it, because maybe I do too.
It's one of the most famous cases of drug abuse in healthcare. Rocky Allen.
No.
Rocky,
I like the name, though.
I know. Rocky was a surgical technologist.
Did you say Rocky was in Colorado?
Oh, it's from the Denver Post. Yeah, it's weird.
Her name's Rocky, and she's in fucking California.
It's a guy.
Yeah, but his name is Rocky.
I know.
How cheesy is that?
Oh, I know.
It's like naming myself Chowder in Boston. It's stupid. Hey, Chowder, what's up, Chowderhead?
Rocky was a surgical tech in the Navy.
Oh, Rocky, you're giving the U.S. Navy a bad set.
He was stationed in Afghanistan.
Oh, well, that's understandable.
Yeah. He was discharged and diagnosed with PTSD, as many are. He also had a history of sexual abuse.
Oh, so he came in some issues, too.
As well, he had some issues. He was court-martialed while serving in the Navy for stealing vials of fentanyl.
Rocky, you're a hot mess.
He was fired from 5 hospitals in California, Arizona, and Washington before Swedish hospital in Inglewood hired him.
How are people still hiring him?
He just kept lying. And they would say,
but don't they do a reference check?
Yeah, that's not true, blah, 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 blah. He must have been a real good storyteller. These people are good at lying.
But she was really cute.
Probably. Oh, no, I saw her picture.
No, not so much. I couldn't call him Rocky. I just couldn't do it.
I know.
That's like a dog's name.
So he, he would just lie to them and they would believe it and hire him. He was finally caught at Swedish when he was found switching a vial of fentanyl for a vial of saline. He was prosecuted and sentenced to 6.5 years in prison.
Wow.
The judge gave him that sentence. They had asked for 2.5 years. The prosecutors asked for 10. The judge gave him 6.5. He said Rocky didn't give a damn about people. Quote.
No. Why would he? He's in his drug addiction.
Yeah. He was stealing that fentanyl from an elderly patient about to undergo surgery and then came into a room high to operate on a burn patient.
Oh, nice.
He also cost the hospital $800,000 in testing.
Ooh.
Because guess what? He was HIV positive.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and he's using a syringe and drawing
my
meds out of vials that they're using on patients.
Oh, he's a real piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Rocky.
And the hospital had to test 2,400 patients that
wow.
could have been infected.
Could you imagine if he infected all those people?
He didn't infect anybody.
Son of a bitch.
But I think he must have used clean, but they had to make sure because
he's a
how
real
can you
son
trust
of a bitch.
that? So he could have infected 2,400 patients because of him using the vials of drugs.
Where's Rocky now?
Not working in healthcare.
What a piece of shit.
Yeah. And then this is my last story.
I like a good story, though. I don't mind. I'm settled in for the day.
Mm-hmm. This is from DallasNews.com. In 2016, UT, University of Texas, Southwestern's Clements Hospital. So I'm just going to now say Clements Hospital.
Clemens. Like Fat Clemens from The Godfather?
Clements.
Clements.
Hospital found that Aaron Bradley Hudson was stealing drugs.
I like his name.
Yeah. Meant for post-op patients he was treating and using them in the bathrooms.
Oof.
So co-workers reported him
Why
after
do they
finding...
shit up in the bathroom? It's so dirty in there.
It's private. It's locked.
Yeah,
Co-workers reported him after finding syringes in bathrooms. Like after he would come out, there'd be syringes in there. He lost his license and pleaded guilty to fraudulently obtaining a controlled substance.
All right, I'm sorry again. Was he a nurse?
He was a nurse.
Okay.
He was a traveling nurse. He then killed himself in June 2017.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. He lost his license. He was going to go to
his
prison. He lost his job. This all came out.
Yeah.
He ended his life. His mother said he was a smart, funny, and
that's sad.
kid, and he loved being a nurse, but was no match for drugs of that magnitude. Several months after Hudson stole meds, Patricia Norman, known as Trisha, started showing signs of drug abuse. Trisha was a cardiac ICU nurse and had wanted to be a nurse since she was 15.
Oof.
She worked 12-hour shifts. She lived with her brother, and he started noticing that she would be like walking into walls when she got off her shifts.
Oh, nice.
And she would just brush off.
I'm tired.
I'm exhausted.
I'm tired.
exhausted.
Yeah, I knew what she was going to say.
He also found empty syringes and vials around the house, but she claimed she forgot to throw them out at work. Police twice had been called to find her unconscious in her car with syringes and tourniquets.
Come on.
She was given CPR and Narcan and revived. The first time they took her to a nearby hospital where she told them she had taken prescribed meds and a Xanax, and it was never investigated.
And I had to inject them into my arm with the tourniquet.
Mm-hmm. The second time, she was taken to Clements, where she worked.
I'm pretty sure any drug you're using a tourniquet for is illegal.
Probably. So they took her to where she worked, where she told her brother her fellow nurses covered for her. The case was never pursued.
Oh, come on. Come on, ladies. Pull it together.
6 months later, Trisha was found in a hospital bathroom stall late in the evening, still in her scrubs. She died of a fentanyl overdose.
Oh, my God.
At the age of 32.
They could have saved her life if they had reported it.
They went, like, the EMTs went to the manager, the police went to her, manager, and they were like, oh, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And they just kind of brushed it aside. And
Shameful.
A year and a half later, Aisha Keller took a break during a shift at Clements, and was gone for quite a while. Co-workers called her phone and heard it ringing inside the staff bathroom. She was found on the floor with a syringe labeled fentanyl. They tried to revive her, but she died at the age of 36.
This is all at the same hospital. Yeah. Jesus.
Midazolam was also found in the syringe. She was said to be a firecracker that loved her patients.
That's a shame.
Yep.
That's a shame.
And so they've obviously been investigated for how they
are
return substances and handling their drugs. And they said we do it the same way as everybody else and blah, blah, blah. But they did change some, safety measures there.
Not that this has anything to do with nursing, but did you ever see the one? It's on Netflix, and I can't remember the name of it. And it's about the drug labs in Massachusetts.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the drug lab assistants, they don't test these drug labs, and they have cocaine, they have heroin, they have because they have to, that's their
they test it against it.
Yeah, what's it, the sample? It's like the the constant.
Yeah.
So they're testing it. This girl, she'd be hitting LSD, heroin, coke, all in the same shift. They're like, she was in the bathroom every 10 minutes, and she'd be in the bathroom for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
30,000 cases had to get thrown out of Massachusetts because she was the lab tech. And then there was another one who was so anxious to be perfect, she would grab 5 tests, test one of them, and say they were all the same just because she wanted to be hypervigilant. I was horrified. Yeah. I was horrified. So yeah, it is a big problem in the field. Unfortunately, in my career, I've seen doctors shooting up. I've seen nurses. Most of the nurses I've seen are not drug. It's alcohol.
It's alcohol. Yeah.
They're really abusing the alcohol. We've had quite a few. They've been through treatment. They've come back. I can't believe I didn't notice it to begin with. I just am so oblivious. I'm just like, whatever. I want to think the best of everybody. I don't want to think my coworkers are raging alcoholics. But it is a real issue, especially in the OR. Keep your eyes out. I have a friend of mine who is a nurse, and one of her friends came to her. She caught an anesthesiologist injecting in his thigh while he was doing anesthesia, and she had to report him, and it was a big deal. She had another friend commit suicide with the drugs. Like we had a doctor do the same thing where they had the intern put a hep lock in, and he went home and he killed himself.
I think he said he was like hungover.
Yeah, he was. He had the flu or something. So it happens. And you have to be hypervigilant, really alert. Yeah. And don't be afraid to report because you could save your friend's life. Right. And that's more important than worrying about their career. You could save their life. You could save a patient's life. Right. It's really kind of important.
Yep. Get help.
There's
tons of help out there. Call your hospital employee assistance program. Go on your state legislature website. They all have
SARP.
Them. SARP for Massachusetts.
SARP.
But you go to mass.gov or Alabama.gov. Check whatever it is. Yeah. Go to your state page.
And don't be afraid to report them because you could save lives.
Yeah. And I know it's hard. Report yourself. You need help. You need help. And you don't want to hurt somebody. You're not there to hurt somebody.
And if it's that bad, go to your employee assistance program. Or pull your friend Laura aside. Go for a few drinks. Yeah. And unload like we do. Many nights. Yeah. Laura, I've called her on the way home from work. Oh my God, you're not going to believe what just happened. Or we just happen to be in the same room and we just deal with it. Like we talk to each other. Your friends are There's a reason nurses tend to be very cliquey. Yes. Because you're seeing stuff you can't talk about with your other friends.
I tell my husband, he's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, it's not
my husband's very supportive.
Yes. No, he's
but
supportive.
But he didn't see what I saw.
He can't
appreciate what I was doing.
Understand the magnitude. So it's just, you find somebody and you talk.
Right.
Before it gets
bad. To the rock and roll part, I just went over a little, just because I figured, like, we have to touch rock and roll if we're going to do sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So I found some... Surgeons are so geeky. I'm sorry, but they're so goofy. They really are. So this is a band called Cell Division. You have 4 surgeons, 3 plastics, and 1 vascular surgeon. They're members of the rock and roll band Cell Division. Oh, they cover classic rock songs. You have Dr. Weisswasser. Dr. Weisswasser, room 3, please. Dr. Weisswasser, room 3. He got so into it that he actually met, like, the Rolling Stones. He meets the Foo Fighters. He has, quote unquote, they come to his house for tea and they discuss health. It makes him feel like a real human. Like, really, asshole? I'll make you feel like a real human. Come wash my toilets. All right. Then we have...
Yes, you're a real human hanging out with the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he's a douche. All right, NED. What do you think NED stands for? Think medicine. You're never going to come up with this, so I'll just tell you. No evidence of disease.
I was like, the only thing I know is no evidence of disease. That's really...
Dorks name themselves no evidence of disease. And they're all comprised of GYN oncologists.
Oh, God.
I want to be that groupie, though. They know their way around. Let me tell you what. They know their way around. Then we have malpractice.
Oh.
Oh, my cheesy. It's so cheesy. Malpractice. I wouldn't pay to see any of these. I'm not going to lie. Maybe the gynecologists, because they know their way around. But that's the only reason because they know their way around. All right. Malpractice, lead singer is a trauma surgeon. I don't know where he has the time. Yeah. Clearly, he's a trauma surgeon in, like, Idaho where nothing's going on. Right. And, I mean, we have to the honorable mention of Rod the Longbone, which is made of orthopedic surgeons at the hospital we work at. Yeah. Rod the Longbone. And not for nothing.
Which is also so cheesy.
It's so cheesy. And they had fucking OR groupies. That's what's even cheesier.
They would all go.
They'd all go drinking. Rod the Longbone's playing tonight. I'm like, ooh, good for you. I think I'll stay home and count my fucking mustard seeds. I'm good. I'll pass on Rod the Longbone. Thanks. But they had their groupies. Yeah. So I guess to let off some steam, the surgeons go for a little bit of trying to be cool. Because most of these guys are kind of dorky. You know, they've been in med school their whole life, and they're really like cerebral, and they're kind of goofy, and they're trying to be cool, but they were the kid in school who was getting wedgies. You know, they had the pencil protectors, and they little tape on the glasses. They're smart, and they're making a lot of money, and they're saving your life. Yeah. But they're dorky. They'll never be the cool kids in school. No. So they're trying to be the cool kids in school. The only group that could potentially be the cool kids in school are the orthopedic guys. Yeah. I will say,
jocks.
They're jockey. Yeah. They're usually pretty good looking. Yeah, they're jacked. Yeah. But they're not really the smartest of the surgical groups. Yeah. You know, I fix bones. That's what I do. Yeah. Patient's dead, but I'll fix the bone. Right. Don't hold us to it. But you guys, you're adorable, but you're kind of dorky. Like you're kind of. That's the only way I can say it.
You're the Neanderthals.
Yes, you are. Yeah. I have my hammer and I have my chisel, and I'm going to get it done. God bless.
I mean, very smart. Went through med school.
Look at the real dorks of the dorks of surgical neuro. Oh my God. The neuro guys are as dorky as they're going to get. Obviously. Like, you're wicked smart. Yeah. But goddamn, you guys are, like, not the sexiest group I've ever seen.
You can't even say, like, a sentence without being like, oh my God, you're a book. Like, everything.
You're over my head already. You're talking about groceries, and you've already gone over my head. Right. You have cardiac. Their egos are so big that most of them are bald because their heads are so big. You know, they're way, like... And right under cardiac goes thoracic and vascular because they all go together. Yeah, yeah. So those are the ego guys. Oh, yeah. General, I think, is the coolest because they do a little bit of everything. They're like, we're here, dude. We'll fix whatever. No, like, you get some colon issues, okay. Get some neck bash, whatever it takes. Orthos, we're going to fix your bone. GU, I don't know. GYN's all women. It's all fucking women. Yeah. All we do is
there are a few guys.
But, come on.
I know.
It's all women. Yeah. And they're like power women.
Oh, yeah.
We're power women. We're going to fix the GYN. We're going to fix you. Power women in GYN. What are the services? What am I missing? Plastics. Plastics are douchebags.
They're like the pretentious guys on the boats with the boat shoes.
Yes, I'm going to make money.
The sweater around their neck.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. All day long. They're kind of douchey. Am I missing a service? Come on.
I think that's it.
Come on, we got plastics, we covered GU, neuro, vascular thoracic, general, GYN, GU. Cardiac. There's two more. We're missing two. Petey. Petey's this. I'm so sweet. I'm so giving. I'm going to get back to my community. I'm going to take care of little orphans with cleft lips in Ecuador. Like, they're really sweet. They're really sweet. Yeah. I couldn't do Petey. No. I couldn't do it. No. We just had, like, babies come in. There's a lot of weird babies coming in. And it's like, I couldn't do it. Who's 12? What are we missing, Laura? Number 12. Walk the hallways, Laura. Who am I missing?
PD, plastic ferns.
Yep.
GU, GYN, thoracic.
Cardiac.
Vascular. PD, vascular, neuro, ortho. That's it.
I'm missing somebody. But anyway, I think we've covered them all. If you have any other takes on these services, you let us know. Because that's basically our take in a nutshell. Douchebags. Athletes, egotistical pricks. I gotta get back to my society. Power women.
No, I mean,
GU is kind of like nondescript.
GU is kind of.
They're kind of the kid in the back of the classroom that wants to mind his own business.
Yeah.
They're just like, I'm coming in here and getting my job done. I want to go home. I don't want to be bothered. I can't be bothered. Leave me alone. I'm gonna do my job. I'm gonna deal with the donut, also known as prostate. Yes. Call it a day.
Yeah, I'll fix your urethra for you.
Yeah, and make it pee again. Yeah. Nice straight stream. Call it a day.
Yeah.
They just want to be left alone. I think that's it. I think we've covered everybody.
I think so.
All right. Yeah. So, happy anniversary to us.
Yes.
Yay, 2 years. I have a big year planned. Hopefully COVID won't kill it, because it killed my last year. And we'll see you. I don't know what we're going to do, because we haven't planned it yet. Nope. But it's coming.
Something's coming.
Something's coming. It's coming. It's coming big. All right. See you later. Bye.
Yep. Like, subscribe, rate, and review the Scissors and Scrubs podcast on whatever podcast app you listen to us on. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Scissors and Scrubs. And email us any of your stories or thoughts to scissorsnscrubs@gmail.com.